you. Come on in, sit on down. So, I might have done a bad thing. Let me explain. I was scrolling through X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it when I come across this. This is a post by Ron, aka TrueGreen7, talking about the contest that he's running. He does these fairly regularly. They're kind of like a design contest for Fakemon artists. It's this beautiful thing that allows for artists to get their work seen while also being able to compete and have a little bit of this fun back and forth that ultimately helps build this community that we've all become a part of. It's a wonderful, amazing, and just beautiful thing. Now I'm going to ruin it. See, I never competed in one of these contests before. When I first started really posting my work on socials, it was kind of too late at that point, I feel like, so I just kind of went by the wayside. But it does seem like fun, something that I really wanted to try. Only problem is this, and we'll go ahead and call this our cons list. So our cons list goes as such. If I were to post, it would be a problem because I also help judge these pieces. How am I intended to judge something that I am also competing in? Well, I'm going to lie. The next point is that Ron knows my art style. He'd be able to pick me out pretty quickly and know that I'm in a place that I'm not supposed to be. So I would have to change my art style just a little bit to make sure that I could hide amongst the thousands of submissions that he's getting. Again, cons list. This is a lot of really good detail that tells us that we shouldn't do what we're planning on doing. But if we look at the pros list, that's pretty good. So the stage is set with us ready to perform this terrible, horrible scheme on a friend of mine. And I'm not going to dilly-dally anymore. I'm going to let you get right to the video and tell me your thoughts. Let's get started. Hi, I'm the Thesterninator, but my friends call me Stern. Welcome to the channel. While you're here, don't forget to drop down below, like, comment, subscribe, do all that fun stuff that makes me and YouTube happy, and let's ruin some friendships. First up, we want to look at this design for our first Pokemon that Ron gave us. This cute little dinosaur turtley fella. I want to take this design and break it apart. Rip his legs off, rip his little arms and face apart, and put it back together in some format. So, first, let's look at the shapes that we have. We start out with this type of face shape, which very much makes me think of like medieval knights and the grills that they have to cover their faces. The head poof also reminds me of those type of accent designs that knights would have. With those two things in mind, I'm pretty certain that we're coming up with a dragon that's also a knight. This shell, though, is going to be kind of an issue. What are we going to do with that? How are we going to evolve this shape and structure? So there were a few things to keep in mind with this design. Number one was that this was going to be a dragon type. Number two was that I'd already solidified that this was going to be a knight-based Pokemon. And number three was I wanted to avoid some ideas that I felt a lot of people may already be doing. I didn't want to have to compete with other artists who were working in a style that they were comfortable with while I was trying to change my style up just a little bit. And I'll get more into details on that in just a moment. But these were our three primary concepts. Going along the line of the first one there, I wanted this to feel a little bit draconic, but didn't want to go the route of making it feel very Pupitar, where it suddenly became this other form. I do think that there is some merit to that, and it is definitely a really cool design motif to go for, but here I wanted to go pretty standard, keep things kind of to what we see with other pseudo-legendaries, where they just kind of grow. This being the adolescent stage, I wanted to make some of these rounder angles a little bit sharper. On our second point of wanting to make this feel more knight-ish and go into that aspect of making this feel unique and making it feel like something that could potentially exist in the Pokemon universe, I wanted to focus in on that knight aspect, specifically the idea of jousting, which touches on our third point. I felt like jousting was something that a lot of people may not touch on and may not focus in on for their design. So I felt like I could kind of stand on my own, set apart in that idea. I looked at kind of the spiny little sharpened hands of the initial stage, as well as that little fiery tail, and thought, what if we make that little tiny flick of a tail into this big, like, booming type of force that propels the Pokemon forward? Not necessarily an actual fire or blast, but hair that gives the illusion of that. Also gave us the opportunity to bring in some more equestrian type of design to the look, while sharpening the face more so into that knight's helmet. So we had a good number of things that we could work with, a good number of inspirations, and a set way that we wanted to format this Pokemon. Now, going into the idea of making this design feel different from my typical style, typically I go in, I do my line work, I try to make it as clean as possible, and I move on. With this design, I wanted to really focus in on a bleeding edge type of ink pattern. So after I went in and did my inking, I decided to smooth out the corners where each tangent would meet. Areas where a line might hit another line and we'd have this kind of perpendicular kind of jut, I wanted those to bleed together. So the way that I did that in Photoshop is by going in, setting my smoothing to 10% after kind of selecting all of the line work, and then filling in from there. It provides this inky type of feel that isn't something that I typically do, but I will admit, since doing this drawing, I've really added it to my repertoire. It's really fun, and I feel like it gives a natural look to what we're doing. I also went in and kind of cheated a sketch look to the lines by selecting the lines again, making everything go out by 1 pixel, and then very sloppily sketching over the whole thing, making some line variation across the line work there. I like my line work to feel clean, and this I felt really made it feel not clean, but in a very purposeful way that hopefully would move away from being able to tell immediately that this is my art. I did a couple other little tricks here too, but I'll get into those in the next form because I'm really happy with the way that this design turned out, and I want to talk about it a little bit more. So meet Brute Tremor, the name coming from brute and tremor, the shaking of the ground, usually with earthquakes and things of that nature. He is the jousting Pokemon and has gained that steel typing to really accommodate that category that he falls into. I really dig this Pokemon, and while he's not super fast, I can picture him galloping across a field to challenge an opponent. Luckily, his defenses and his HP are gonna suffice, as he's gonna be taking a lot of hits as he learns to become that true dragon and knight combo. But as with all pseudo-legendaries, he cannot stay in this form. No, he has to evolve to his truest potential, and man, I feel like I bit off more than I could chew on this design. I feel like I really went in with a lot of different areas of inspiration that now had to come to fruition, and I'm kind of just hoping that that happens? I don't know. I went the direction that I tend to go with draconic type of Pokemon, that being a long boy, elongating that tail, no longer needing to look like that burst of energy. He is intimidating and strong and powerful all on his own, bringing that neck up into this reaching type of feel, like he's able to go across the field and stab from afar. I feel like there'd be a fun ability dynamic in there, but you guys would have to let me know that. As I say in most of my videos here, I am terrible. I'll go on and say it. I suck at coming up with abilities, so let me know down in the comments what abilities that you think this Pokemon and the next one we're going to work on should have. I'm always so interested to see what you guys come up with, because honestly, it feels like when we work on this together, it makes the design feel so much more alive. Speaking of alive, I decided to bring a lot more of that lively, vibrant red into the design. It at one point was a little bit more purple, magenta hued. Now it is a bright and fiery and vibrant red. I added these rivets across the hands and across the face to feel much more associated to that knight type of aesthetic. And I finally feel like I knew what to do with the shell. By making it look much more like a mace, it turns this whole design from just a simple knight dragon combo, if we can call that simple, into a living armory. This thing has a mace on its back, it has these sharpened jousting sticks, sword things on its arms, and its face is so much more reminiscent now of a knight's mask, with that horn jutting out of the top to give some juxtaposition to that flowing mane, looking like an achieved and victorious knight as it charges across the battlefield. I can't say it enough. I dig this design. I took a lot of inspiration from some other pseudo-legendaries that kind of I was able to interpret into the formulaic system on how these Pokemon work, and I'm pumped about it. One thing that I did to really change up how I do the coloring of this design was, rather than going in with a standard dithered brush, the ones that get kind of soft as they go towards the edges, I instead went with one that was harsh on the edges, but dithered towards the front and back end. I feel like it allowed me to control my shading a little bit better and definitely removed a second pass of shading that I typically do to get softer edges. Here, they kind of just came naturally depending on the pressure that I used on the pen. So again, another really fun thing that I was able to learn in this practice that allowed me to add to my arsenal of what I'm capable of doing with shading. I still have a lot to go, and I feel like all of us do. Art and drawing is a learning experience from beginning to end. I don't think you'll ever get to the point, or I don't think I'll ever get to the point where I say, there we go, I'm done, I have nothing left to learn. It's funny to even think of that concept, but here, it was an opportunity to learn how to use different brushes and different techniques. I did the same with my lighting, and while it isn't my favorite system to go with, there definitely felt like there was a trade-off. The shading became a lot easier and the highlights became a little bit more difficult. So some of this, some of that, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Ultimately, it came out with a design that I'm really happy with, and I'm hoping, I'm hoping beyond hope that it allows it to look a little bit less like my style, but still like something worth taking a second look at in the contest. But obviously that video came out before this one. You guys know how things turned out, and yeah, let's talk more about this guy. So this is Brew Trample. I love the idea of going from a small tremor to absolutely trampling like a stampede. He obviously has that 600 base total that we see in all pseudo-legendaries, and now in this shiny moves into this more bluish, greenish type of look, both a reference to the Black Knight, but also to the Green Knight from Arthurian legend as well. He's absolutely massive. I definitely see this as a rideable Pokemon, although with those spikes, I do guarantee you have to be careful. There's gotta be some horror stories in the Pokemon universe about riding this thing wrong and getting bucked off or impaled in some way. I dig this design, and I thought it'd be my favorite until we started working on the other design that Ron dropped. Next up, we have this little isopod looking fella who very much looks like a living hat. So the hat's very clearly going to be a big part of the design. Feels very pirate-esque, and with the two kind of side by side as potential pseudo-legendaries, yeah, it makes sense having that pirate versus knight type of motif and design element. But where do we go from there? So I kind of started over, scratched everything that I was looking at, and wanted to really hunker down on that pirate and hat aesthetic over any weird ideas that I might throw in and change up the entire design. So yeah. So I kind of started out stumped on this one. Where would I go? What would I do? I knew that we had a couple inspirations already inherently in the design. One is this isopod, a seafaring bug creature, another being this hat. But where to go from there? We also have the name Tryla Bright, which gives us a little influence on where we're going to go for some typing stuff or potentials on where we could go, but I really wanted to focus in on the story of this Pokemon. I picture it being a pirate going throughout the sea, eating coins and treasure that it happens to stumble across, to the point that once it evolves into this second stage, we get a much more Pupitar-like design, but not necessarily a Pupitar style. It doesn't become a cocoon, it doesn't become anything like that, but much more just becomes this much more rounded shape. We also see this with Bagon's evolution Shelgon. So it's something that we've seen happen with pseudo-legendaries before, even though it is a little bit off from where we're specifically trying to be. It feels like it still fits in this line for what I'm trying to go for. And while the shape is different, it feels like it's a breath of fresh air over a vast delineation from the idea. So I went with this rounded style shape where, like I said, I picture this thing eating coins off the ground, getting all of these treasures that have been lost, to the point that it itself begins to resemble a money sack. It begins to resemble the treasure that it's been eating. I also love the funny little mouth that this character has that Ron gave it, so I wanted to incorporate that in some way, but that spot actually ended up being the area where I wanted to draw the most evolutionary potential. I thought about how crabs and other crustacean type creatures will emit this foam. It's something we see Krabby do a lot in the early generations, as well as portrayed much grander in its Gigantamax form. So I wanted to bring in this foam to create this type of beard. In this instance, it's going to be much more like a mutton chop style set of facial hair, but we're going to see that expand a lot more in the later evolutions here. I really had a lot of fun despite the challenges that I came across. You can probably see throughout the sketch that I make a ton of changes to the idea and the concepts that I'm going for, but ultimately I end up with something that I'm really happy with for a middle stage that I think is going to lead well into our final form of this Pokemon. But we can't talk about that until we get through talking about this. So I give you Tryla Brat, a little brat who's so greedy for gold that his shiny has taken on a golden hue. It is the Treasure Seeker Pokemon and has now gained that dark typing for its underhanded tactics. I dig this little guy so much. He's so different from the shape of the initial design, but I feel like it's a great stepping stone for what's going to come. I even included little gold accents to his legs to feel like buttons across the whole design, and his little arms hunched in make it feel like he's wearing an old-timey overcoat like we see a lot of pirates in media wear. I love the guy, and I hope you do too. But enough of that touchy-feely, we've got some decks to swab and some booty to plunder. Don't laugh, that's how they talk. So I went in wanting to make this thing feel like the pirate of all pirates, you know, make it feel like it's a bug who is a captain. And so we went in and tried to do that. Like I said, I really wanted to expand on the idea of that foam into this long and extravagant beard, and actually looked at Blackbeard as a big example of this. While the beard doesn't end up being black, one of the things really cool that Blackbeard used to do, which added to the mythicality of the person, was he would tie candles and wicks into his beard, creating this smoky atmosphere along these multiple points across his facial hair. I wanted to incorporate the same type of thing here, while also giving him that big bulbous belly. I wanted to really incorporate that idea of him being gluttonous and just out for treasure to eat and to consume and to bring into his fold. So I did that here. And while looking back at the design, I do have to wonder if maybe I hadn't gotten all of the jousting energy out of my body yet with the previous pseudo, because here I decided that he would have one long finger able to extend to become this saber. He is a swordsman as well as a gentleman, as well as a pirate, as well as a bug. He wears many hats. Speaking of hats, here we can see that that little feathery type of structure that we had in the middle form has now become this long and fluffy type of feather shape to the hat. Also feeling a lot like a bug antenna. So we have that while also working in that hat shape to much more accentuate the eyes as they hide behind this big and fluffy foamy beard. A lot going on with this design, but I feel like it kind of works. The loudness of pirates really plays into what I think is the loudness of the design. And I have to admit, I had so much fun drawing these Pokemon that at the end of the day, I decided that it wasn't even worth it to enter them into the contest. I know, a lot of people are wondering, hey, where was Stern's design in the initial video? Well, I ended up keeping these to myself and just enjoying the journey. I think that is one of the principles of art, isn't it? We all want to become artists who do commissions and get paid and do all of this great stuff with character design and video game design and book design and all of that. And as a person who's gone through that journey in a couple different works, I can tell you, having fun and enjoying the time is so much more valuable than any of that other stuff. I've worked doing comic book publishing, I've worked doing designs for video games, and the time that I've had the most fun is being here with you guys, doing what I want to do and drawing what I want to draw. So while it would be fun to go out and just completely ransack someone else's contest, and trust me, it does sound like so much fun, it was a lot more fun just getting to design stuff, hang out with friends, and be able to create something that I could be proud of despite whatever the prompt was. So I hope that that becomes something you guys can carry along with yourselves as you continue on this art journey. And if you're watching and aren't an artist, I would say consider trying your hand at it. These contests are a great way for beginners and experts to kind of come together and coalesce their efforts, getting to work to build something grander in this community. When I first joined the Fakemon community, I was surprised at how welcoming it was. That's not something that you typically find on the internet. but I was blown away, and getting to talk and chat with you guys and other creators is one of the biggest blessings that I've gotten in my life alongside this amazing endeavor. So thank you guys for everything you do, and thank you for being a part of the video. Whether you watched it, liked it, commented, or subscribed, all of that is inconsequential. You guys are here because you enjoy art and you enjoy Pokemon, and that means that we have something in common. So yeah, enough of the mushy gushy, let's get back to the design. So meet Capitrillo. I am a sucker for when naming convention is kind of thrown out the window or scrambled about for different evolutionary forms, so this one moves the Trilo to the end while making him a Captain Trilobite. Even his shiny brings in some of that gold that we saw in the previous form, illuminating his beard with that vibrant golden light shining from within. He is a big boy, as you can see from the size comparison there. Definitely not one that you'd want to get in the way of, and with that bug dark type, now has that 600 BST that we have for all pseudo legendaries. I really love this design, from that foamy beard to that red feather in the cap to that trench coat looking wing type of shape to the back. He becomes a lot darker and a lot more exciting in my opinion once he reaches this final form. So who is your favorite? Who are you adding onto the team? Let me know down in the comments below. And hey, before you get all the way down there, consider stopping by the description where you can find various opportunities to support the channel and make more content like this. Do you want more content like this? You just want to see me ruin stuff? I'm not judging, right? I'm just genuinely asking, because it is fun to ruin things. Like knocking down a sandcastle can sometimes be just as fun as building ones, but I digress. If you want to support the channel, I greatly appreciate it, and you can join an exclusive club of people just like these ones here. These are the people who allow this stuff to continue happening and allow for this content to work. You can also watch the full video of Ron's contest over here. I'll have the link somewhere available where you can actually see who won and the people who actually competed. It's a great video. We had a ton of fun looking at the stuff. And you guys are insanely talented. I can't say that enough. You guys are incredibly talented. And if you want to share more of your art, consider stopping by the Discord down below. But with all that said, it sounds like you know where to find me. And I'll catch you in the next one. Bye. I don't know if it's bugs or what, but my feet are itchy. I don't know if you could tell. I was rushing through the recording because a mosquito. I think it's one mosquito that's been just like throughout my home, and it's feeding. It is buffet style feeding on me, and so I'm itchy. I'm trying to record quick so that I can get out, which I guess this part of the video is really working against my plan, right?